Hello people of the internet, this is Arkivian and I just watched episode 2 of season 2 of Luke Cage. And you know what, it's still pretty good, I like it. I don't feel like it's quite as good as the first one. Now I'm not going to go through every scene, I'm just going to talk about the bits that interested me. But I do think there were some pretty cool things to talk about. So Luke Cage's power level, what's going on with that? It starts off with Luke Cage talking to Claire and he's basically explaining how the Judas bullet, I think it was called, basically bounced off. It didn't do anything and he doesn't know why. And then she kind of gives us an explanation, which was the second chemical bar thing that gave him his powers that he had in the last season, which I kind of remember, but I don't remember very well. I'm going to have to rewatch that season. There's a lot of crap from it. I don't remember it, it turns out. Well, she thinks that it made him stronger, made him more powerful. So he's all like, so I'm even more indestructible than before? And then she goes, yeah, well, we'll have to test you. And I'm like, yes, tell me there's going to be a testing montage. Tell me there's going to be a testing montage. And then pretty much the next scene is testing montage. And I'm like, yes. This is a superhero show. I want to see him use his superpowers in some way, shape or form. And one of those things is testing the limits. So we can see and get an idea of what it is he can do. Now, I expected them to do a scene where maybe they go to a back alley and then they jury rig something to try and test how tough he is, like drop a car in his head in a junkyard or some crap like that. That's what I thought they were going to do, because things like that happen like in Spider-Man, like in the first Spider-Man movie where he sort of jumps across the rooftops while nobody can see. But that's actually not what they did. What they did was completely different from what I expected, which I actually really liked. They made it a community affair because, as they keep reminding you in the show, he's a local folk hero. So he does some exercises which I assume you would do in American football. That's the impression I got. I'm not from America. I don't know the sport or anything like that. But the key part of that is how they said he was moving a tyre that weighed 400 pounds. You're like, god damn, he's just flipping it with one hand and then he just tosses it over his shoulder. You're like, damn, that's some Luke Cage power right there. And the thing is, everybody else sees it, and then they have this really nice line, which is like, how does it feel? And he says, it's great feeling like himself. So he's in the public eye, and he's just being accepted for who he is, and obviously showing off, and he likes the admiration and stuff like that, because everybody's like, wow, and he was even like, wow, yeah, man, I can just do this shit all day, you know? But I really like that approach. It really brought home how much of a folk hero he is. Like, it justified some of the stuff they've been talking about in the last episode and this one. So overall, it helps you get a gauge of what it is Luke Cage can do. He can just toss 400 pounds like it's nothing. That's a lot of strength. He can run 100 meters in 3 seconds or 4 seconds or whatever it was. He can jump really far. All of this is just based on the fact that he's just really damn strong. But none of that gives us any idea of how indestructible he actually is either. So whilst all this is going on, and even though they have the nice conversation at the end, then Claire, as she always does, she's like, but what if there's something more powerful than a Judas bullet? And you're just slapped in the face with more foreshadowing, and you're kind of getting sick of it by this point. But they do pay off some of that foreshadowing later on in the episode. Luke Cage goes to this gambling den and he's going to confront this gangster, and the gangster's ready for him. But he pulls out this ×6 shotgun that if you fired it, I'm pretty sure it would just break off your arm, you know? But he blasts Luke Cage with it and he gets thrown out this window and then lands on his car and totally wrecks the car. And the force of it impacting dislocated his shoulder. So it made him feel a lot of pain. Did it do actual damage? That I don't know. But it disabled him from being able to fight at the time and he had to get away. So what it does show is another way in which Luke Cage can be hurt. So a shotgun point blank to the head, like in Jessica Jones, still might have the same effect as it did back then. I don't know, but we'll have to see as the show goes on. And then we got Misty, and to be honest, there's not too much to talk about here. I mean, stuff happened. I mean, she's back at work, people are looking at her weird, she has kind of this catty hello when she hugs someone, so clearly there's a bit of resentment or some issue going, some dramas going on there, whatever. But overall, it's just more about her trying to adapt to work and her boss not letting her go after the purpose she wants to go after. And to be honest, the boss is in the right. You just come back. You've gone through a dramatic ordeal. You're going to do light duties for a while till he can be confident that you can get back to doing your job, you know, properly. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of on his side. I see his point. She does have this moment where she notices everybody constantly staring at the corner of her eye. To be honest, it feels really forced, that scene. Like, everybody in the room is taking a glance every 5 seconds. You're like, really? So if they're trying to put across that's how it feels there, like everybody's constantly looking, yeah, okay, but it seemed more like that's literally what they were all doing, and it was absurd. And then she addressed it being absurd, which is fine, but it felt really forced. Then she gets up and does that whole look at me, don't look at me, look at me, don't look at me, look at the bear, you know, she, you know, don't feel sorry for me kind of thing. And then you have Shades and Mariah, and well, that scene's interesting. Honestly, at first, not really. They pretty much go over again that Mariah just wants to get out of the life before the life gets her kind of thing, because it's killed off most of her family. And she even gets to the point of using a political strategy that's going to include her manipulating her daughter to try and build some kind of public faith to make her look legit so she doesn't have to look over her shoulder anymore. So clearly she's feeling really desperate. But we kind of got that from the last episode anyway, so it just feels like it's retreading the same steps. However, with Shades, that was a little bit more interesting. You kind of start realizing how psychotic he actually is. They've already established that every time somebody talks bad about him and Mariah, he gets really angry. He takes off his shades, and that's how you know he's angry. But nothing's really come of it yet. But this time round, the gangster he's meeting with just keeps pushing it and pushing it and pushing it, and then bam! Headshot, just kills. I was like, oh damn, I guess that really is the button that you don't press. And then his best friend has the best reaction ever, which I'll come to later. But he does point out something. You just killed the guy that was going to give you 20 million. Where are you going to get that money from now? And you can see, look at his face, he's like, ah, god damn it, he's right. And then he goes back to Mariah and has to tell her, and Mariah starts freaking out. But then something actually interesting happens, like sort of between them, where he gets really obsessive about how he's going to fix it and how he's doing it all for her and everything. And she actually looks a little bit frightened of him. And that, for me, just gave a little bit more of a dynamic to their relationship, because he's constantly on a knife edge of just flipping out, which makes him incredibly dangerous. So Luke Cage and Claire are having a little bit of a disagreement at the moment, and they have an argument. And I think there were two things that scene was trying to focus on. One was Luke Cage, in that things are starting to go to his head a little bit. He's being a bit more irrational in the decisions that he makes. And that's obviously important, but the other thing it was focusing on was what Claire Temple does for Luke Cage and what she actually does for the entire Netflix series. And that is, she's the voice of critical thinking. That seems to be her role. That's why she's so awesome, because she sees through a lot of the bullshit and she understands where the emotional turmoil might be coming from about things, and that is that you can be too close to a situation to be able to be critical, and she pretty much says that. But ultimately, she's the one that can see a much larger context than any of the heroes at the moment, because what makes them heroes is that they're kind of fanatical, they're obsessive, almost single-minded in the goal that they're going for. It just so happens that that goal tends to help a lot of people. And she's trying to constantly remind them of the context, and that there are limits, and that you have to do things in relation to everything else and everyone else, including your own limitations. So I think overall this scene actually did demonstrate two pretty important things, and I think that was the point that they were trying to get across. So what's left? Oh yeah, Bushmaster. That's what's left. We get a bit more indication on how his powers work in this show. So it actually starts off with him removing the bullets, and it looks really painful for him to do. And so you're like, oh, okay, so they do cause some kind of damage. Not that much damage, but it still causes him physical pain to have to remove them. Maybe, I would assume they hurt whilst they're stuck in there in the first place as well. But as the episode goes on, you find out he uses these herbs, kind of like Black Panther. That basically makes him into a super soldier. It seems to give him extra strength and allows his wounds to heal. So it's basically like another super soldier serum, which is fine, but because we just had Black Panther, it doesn't feel like much of a twist on the formula. However, with Bushmaster, that's where the story kind of falls back to the symbolism theme that they were talking about in episode 1. He goes to a restaurant to talk to an acquaintance, and he says that Mariah has the crown and Luke Cage has the heart, and he needs both. So from that, you're like, okay, he's definitely going after Mariah and everything she owns. And in that, he's quite a big threat. Clearly, he's pretty badass so far. But then also, he wants to go after Luke Cage and beat him. Now, we see in the trailer that we know that he wins. But honestly, I still don't feel like he should be much of a threat for Luke Cage. Not unless he can punch with the power of 6 shotguns to the shoulder. So overall, I felt this episode wasn't quite as good as the first episode. There were scenes that I weren't sure really need to be in there. So for example, when Luke Cage's dad comes to the barbershop, not much happens there, really. What happens there is the same thing that happened at the end of the last episode. The only thing of note about that scene was Luke Cage's friend, and he's like, you know, you look alike. And Luke Cage is like, no, we don't. And then the other guy's like, well, you got that swagger from somewhere. And that was it. It was a pretty good joke, but it felt like that scene was there to set up that joke, and they could have just not had that scene there, and it just felt like it was padding out the episode. Also, as much as I like the music in the show, it feels like they're using the music to pad stuff out in the show. People walking into clubs and slow camera angles, kind of nice, filmed kind of well, but oh my god, does it go on for so long? Just get to it, start talking, start having some story. We get it, they're badasses, they're gangsters, whatever. It gets a bit much after a while. I mean, at the end when Luke Cage is beating on that other dude for beating his family, and you know, he's going too far and he's having his own Daredevil movie moment. Why are they having a Daredevil movie moment? You know, am I the bad guy here? Oh no, have I gone too far? Don't copy that movie in any way, shape. Don't do it. Just don't do it, people. But even then, that scene didn't have to be as long as it did. They sort of intercut it with the song that was going on because it was symbolism for how he was feeling and what he was doing. Blah, blah. We get it. We get it. We get it. Move along. Just move along. But there were 2 moments in this episode that were golden for me. You know, I loved it. It made me laugh, gave me a smile on my face, and one of those was that old lady in the apartment block. You know, when Luke Cage is looking around for that gangster, and then she comes out, she goes, "You Luke Cage?" He's like, "Yeah, man." And then she offers some help, and then she asks, and then she gets his number, and then she starts hitting on him, and he's like, God damn, this old lady, she just keep trying. It's so good. I love that scene. That's really good. And the other one is Comanche, Shade's #1 foot soldier dude. That guy cracks me up. Do you know who he reminds me of? He reminds me of the best friend of the main character from that movie Get Out. That's who he reminds me of. He seems to be the guy you want with you in this shit. Because when Shade shoots that guy, the guy he's not supposed to kill because he needs 20 million from him, and he's like, oh my god, he did it, and he sort of reacts, he's surprised, you know, kills the other two guys, helps out Shades, and then the first thing he says is, god damn, that pussy must be ridiculous. Where you get that 20 million from now? And he's like, yeah. And you know what? That guy had a point. And he doesn't like being talked to like a dog, and he brings it up with his boss, man. You're like, you kind of feel for him. He's like, look, I'm just trying to do my job as a foot soldier and as your number one. Just help me out a little bit. And I can't help but like that character. And so far, he's pretty fun. So anyway, that's my thoughts on the second episode of Luke Cage Season 2. If you watched this and you liked it, hit that like button. Let me know what you thought about the episode and what you thought about my thoughts, and did I miss things out? Because honestly, I'm not like a film critic. This is just what I saw in it, so I want to see what other people saw in it. Maybe it'll help me get a better idea of understanding things. Maybe I misunderstood some bits. Anyway guys, thanks for taking the time to watch this, and I'll catch you guys next time.